with that, I will stop rambling now and turn it over to Nick, who is going to be our first of the two providers speaking. And Nick, I'll let you kind of do an introduction of yourself and take it away.
All right. Well, let me share my screen with everybody here. I am Nick Filarelli from Core Services of Northeast Tennessee. We're a small provider agency kind of tucked away in the top right-hand corner there. Here. And over the last 3 years, I've served as my organization's tech champion as we've kind of undergone this experiment in a way with enabling technology and seeing how that can transform the way we provide supports with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it's been a lot of work, but it's been really exciting. It's been inspiring, and we've really changed a lot of lives and sort of revolutionized the way we provide services. So it's been very, very cool. And today I'm going to talk specifically about our latest project, which is providing remote supports to people within our organization rather than using a third-party remote support technology vendor like some people have done or some people may be doing that are listening to this call. So a little bit of background. In 2017, we were selected to be part of Tennessee's Enabling Technology Pilot Project. And during the first year, two people that specifically had a desire for greater independence, we were able to move them out of a supported living home and into their own home where technology supported them for the majority of the time. And on-site paid staff supported them for the minority of the time when they needed it. So essentially, these guys are now able to live on their own for about 12 to 16 hours a day. In 2018, they expanded that project and we became an Enabling Technology First Transformation Agency, which meant that technology would be the primary way that we would look at supporting people before we looked at more traditional methods. We would try to use technology to support them in the least intrusive way possible, provide the most independence. So today, 7 people, or it's about 15% of the people we support, have transitioned from supported living with 24/7 paid staff to living semi-independently. And about 50% of the people we support are using enabling technology to some capacity to increase their independence. So what we had was a ever-growing need to be able to provide intermittent supports to people living independently, because oftentimes a 24/7 paid staff is there just in case something happens, right, especially during the night. So we had more and more people that needed intermittent supports, some few hours during the day, maybe here or there at night, able to get help if they need it, if something was to happen. And one of our goals from the very beginning, in addition to improving lives, was to be able to utilize our workforce more effectively, offer DSPs career advancement opportunities, and maybe people that were interested, a specialty skill that they could pursue to kind of carve out their niche in their career. We're looking to change the way DSPs, the traditional DSP, operated. We did experiment with third-party technology vendors. We partnered with Night Owl, and they were providing some remote support to people during the night, and it was good, but ultimately we saw that as something that we could do ourselves and provide in-house, and I'll speak to some of the benefits of that here in a minute. So we envisioned, a person sitting in a command center looking at several monitors and being able to assist multiple people in a variety of homes across the county, being able to respond to alerts and that kind of thing. But it's very hard to start something like that cost effectively, because oftentimes you need to build the infrastructure to be able to do that, whether you're supporting one person or you're supporting 12 people. So it makes a lot of sense long term, but it can be kind of hard to just get it up and going. So one of our eureka moments was that rather than create this massive and expensive command center where we have positions dedicated exclusively to remote support, what we would do is utilize staff that were already working in existing homes, particularly on the night shift, and providing hands-on paid support to folks in those homes. We had staff that were interested in technology. We've always got people that want promotional opportunities, and unfortunately sometimes our field, there can be limited opportunities for promotion. We have relatively small ratio of admin employees to DSPs, so there's more people interested in management than there are vacancies in management. And we had some staff that were interested in providing remote support and get an opportunity to raise their wages as well. So our plan was to locate homes where the workload during the night wasn't as high. They had some downtime, and they were the types of homes where they're there just in case something happens oftentimes. So the remote support specialist, which is the title of the position we created, is providing direct support for up to 3 people in a residential setting, while additionally they're providing remote support to 7 people that are living independently throughout the community. They carry a dedicated device to serve this purpose. In our case, we use tablets, and their role would be to respond to alerts as they happen. If somebody requests assistance, they would answer that call and they would respond accordingly. And of course, they're going to receive additional compensation because their duties have increased. So the additional cost to the agency really only comes in the form of the hourly shift premium that we're paying to these folks to do this role, which equates to several dollars an hour in additional expenses, and it has the potential to save you many, many, many thousands. So we thought that was a kind of clever solution, albeit a little experimental. As I mentioned, we picked tablets to start off with instead of desktops, kind of like our mobile command center, because the remote support specialist is walking around the house doing laundry, assisting people directly. They can't sit at a computer screen, so they're able to take their computer with them. They can still hear alerts. They can do basically everything they could do on a desktop computer, but they can do it mobily throughout the house. They can take it with them. They can view video ring doorbells on the exterior of somebody's home. They get email alerts for sensors if the stove is left on, if there's smoke detected in the house. They're able to answer a nucleus call, which I'll tell you a little bit more about the nucleus device in a sec. And they have access to all the apps that are associated with various technology that's used to support people in this way. Everything Ring, Nest, Google Duo, anything. The nucleus is this black thing you see here. It looks something like an Amazon Echo Show or the Nest Hub. It provides two-way audio-video communication. And the benefit of this over like Google Duo or FaceTime or something is that it's extremely user-friendly. It sits in a location. It has a big blue button on the front. And if you touch it, it's going to connect you with a remote support specialist. So one of the 4 folks you can see in that picture, whoever is on duty, we have 2 people on duty at any one time performing this role. Whoever answers the call first will be connected with the individual. They will see if they need assistance. They will dispatch a on-site person if necessary. They will respond in whatever way they need to. And sometimes people just need a little encouragement, somebody to talk to, some advice, that kind of thing. So there's a physical lens cover on the top that can be closed for privacy, and we try to place these devices in a common area of the home and generally towards facing a corner or towards a less traveled area, because we do have a couple of houses where there are multiple people living together utilizing remote supports, and if one person wanted to see somebody and talk to somebody, that doesn't necessarily mean their housemate does. So we want to ensure the privacy of their housemate.
Real quick question, Nick.
Yeah.
Can you give us a ballpark on the cost of the hardware and any other software?
The hardware is cheap. I think it's about $200 per device. For the nucleus device, they connect to Wi-Fi, and if they have a Wi-Fi connection and the person with the app has mobile connection, there's no monthly fee or anything associated with the use of that device. The tablet is a Samsung tablet, several $100s. Generally, the hardware is not terribly expensive.
Okay. How is another question here, and I apologize for interrupting your flow.
No, you're fine.
But I'm just going to read this. How is the load management handled via one device as far as using multiple pieces of tech with alerts while supporting multiple people at the same time? Is there a hub that brings everything together for the remote support DSP type role, or is it custom?
Not really. There's not really a hub. A lot of the alerts that are generated can either generate a text or an email, depending on how you set them up. They can send a text message to a phone number if the smoke is detected, if a window's open or a door. They can send an email for the same purposes. So we set all the tablets up with dedicated Outlook accounts to receive those message alerts in that way. They use off-the-shelf apps for things like viewing video ring doorbells, and the nucleus devices has its own app associated with it as well.
Any challenges with kind of your, and I apologize, this is a Dustin question.
Go ahead.
Any challenges with your remote DSP having to kind of monitor multiple different apps, the Ring app, the Nest app, the email account, all that stuff, and then the configuration around all of that? Was that challenging, or?
We selected people that we felt were tech savvy to a degree.
Okay.
And as it turns out, a lot of the younger folks especially that is second nature to them. They're always keeping up with 10,000 apps and sites and devices. So we've not encountered that. I could see that if your technology program got so elaborate that you may need to divvy up the workload, and then you may have the need for the more advanced infrastructure, like I alluded to, like a desktop computer where you have a command center of sorts. I could see it being expanded to the degree that it needed to be. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. I'll let you continue.
Okay. Well, one of the benefits to having a localized remote support as opposed to a third-party remote support, which is generally in another state, is that the person receiving the support has met face-to-face and is familiar with the person that's on the other end of the screen or that's answering the phone call. These are folks that they've trained with, folks that they know. It's not a stranger in a call center somewhere. And additionally, the staff have relationships with the people that they are supporting. And that's something that thus far you're not able to achieve long distance, I don't think. There's nothing like the human face-to-face kind of touch. Of course, it's cheaper. Oftentimes, third-party remote supports are going to run hundreds of dollars a month for that service. And for us, we're able to do it for $2 extra an hour per staff person. So several dollars an hour, which in the grand scheme of things equates to significantly less, because if it was $300, $400, $500 a month per person to have remote supports, for 7 people, that's going to add up. That's going to be pretty significant. And it also allows us greater control over the selection of the people providing remote supports, the training. They're trained the way that our organization wants them to be. And we have more control over how they're going to respond to various alerts, the protocols that are in place for dealing with people's needs throughout the shift. And then management is familiar with the remote support specialists. We have more frequent communication with them. We see them in person on a regular basis, and we can provide greater oversight over those folks than we could over a third-party system. So if somebody needs help, the remote support specialist will assess the alerts. They're trained on everybody's technology plan. They're trained on the individual support plan, and they're trained with the person. They might provide remote assistance via the phone or the nucleus. What we found is sometimes people, a lot of times they just want to chat. We have a few folks that will call about the same time every night just to kind of, it's part of their routine now, say good night and how are you and that kind of thing. But if somebody does require assistance, if they have an emergency, or if there's no response to them calling to check on an alert, for instance, then they can dispatch a local person. We have floating third shift staff in place anyway. Their primary role is to support the overnight shift, make sure everybody's alert, make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to, and they can be dispatched to a home to assist folks in person. Each site generally has a primary staff person that gets a little bit extra money just to be on call for that person or that program. They're an option that can be dispatched. We try to pick staff that live close to a given program. We have a elaborate management backup plan, like I'm sure every provider agency does. And then we try to utilize natural supports in somebody's life as much as possible. So we want numerous options to be able to get to somebody and quickly in the event that they need it. Let's see here. So I'm going to show you a short video. I hope the sound comes across good.
If they need anything, they phone through to us. They have a tablet usually inside of their living room there. If they need anything, they call. And also, make sure no alarms are going off and whatnot. And there's always someone there to take care of their needs should they need it. If there's an emergency, we call on call and make sure that things are taken care of in a timely manner. When I come in, one of the first things I do is I check my tablet to see if anybody's called, to see what alarms have gone off. If I've seen that there's been an alarm at someone's door, I go and see what it was. I keep my tablet close by through the night while I do my chores in the house and do regular work-related stuff, and then in the mornings around 6:30, I get my folks up and we start getting ready for our day. Sometimes they may, if something does go wrong, that support's definitely there should they need it. But, you know, so far, everything's gone well. But I think that also ties in that our people are well taken care of. Sometimes, yes. I do. I've been in this field for, I guess, 15 years now. And it has been my experience that normally a lot of things that our individuals could do for themselves, staff would do it for them. I believe so, yes. Because even me, if I know someone's going to do something for me, I'm not going to do it for myself. I'm going to let them do it. And that's just sometimes human nature, because, you know, we tend to like to take shortcuts sometimes. A year ago, I went back to school to work on a degree in computer information technology. And of course, this is the field that I've known for so long. And, you know, and I'm trying to rack my brain, you know, thinking, well, how can I take what I'm learning and take the skills I already have and actually combine them, you know, and not have to leave my field. And then all of a sudden that popped up. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, that's, you know, very much related. Well, if they need something and it's an emergency, of course I'm going to try to keep them on camera, and I'm going to call on call and have them go out there. Of course, if there's anything major, you know, you want to call 911 and, you know, give them the address of the residence, have them go out there. But I would strive, you know, try to keep them on the camera so I can keep an eye on what's going on until, you know, some type of emergency or some type of help could get there.
Okay, and you're able to dispatch an on-site person if needed?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I know I like where it's going.
All right. Well, I ran long, so I'll leave it there.
Oh, you're good. Thank you, Nick. That video was great. I love how it shows that how you guys have created some new career paths for your workforce. So that's awesome. We did have a couple of real quick questions before we move on to our next presenters.
Okay.
How often do you have to dispatch your backup responders? So it's not your remotes. It's not the person that's actually doing the remote supports, right? They're dispatching a local backup person. How often is that happening?
Very seldom, almost never. This is a relatively new program of ours, but we've not really had an emergency yet, knock on wood, which goes to show that a lot of folks were being vastly over-supported for a long time, I think.
Real quick add-on to that. For those of you that don't know, I ran a remote support agency for 13 years, and on average, I would say it's about once every quarter per home is what we experienced. So that it is pretty infrequent. And we have Harold Sloves. I want to give a shout out to him from DIDD, who was the one that came up with the idea of this tech huddle. Harold, thank you. He's typing applause in the chat. So real quick, Nick, he also asked you to give a quick rundown on any other enabling technologies that are being used at core services.
We use a lot of medication dispensers. Oftentimes, I think med administration it's one of the things you hear mentioned most often as a barrier to somebody living independently. Safety in the form of like smoke detection. The video ring doorbell is a great tool. It really gives family members especially peace of mind to know that somebody's not going to be exploiting or taking advantage of their loved one, because a remote support staff person is able to see anybody that comes to that person's front door, able to see if they come or if their loved one or if their person they're supporting comes and goes, whatever the case may be. Variety of sensors that can detect if the stove's been left on, if the doors have been left open or opened in the middle of the night. It's a long list and growing constantly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Nick, great job. Thank you. So that's provider 1 of 2. We have another provider, Crystal and Miranda. We'll go through their story now. So Nick, you'll have to probably stop the screen share.
Yep.
so that they can
we
take
go.
over. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, Crystal and Miranda, you're up. And while they're getting unmuted and getting their stuff loaded up, I do see two other questions in the Q&A, but so Jordan and Robert, I will get your questions in. I just want the Crystal and Miranda to get a chance to get in here from Emory Valley Center.
Thank you, Dustin. So we're a little in the more beginning stages of the remote supports. Rather, core service is a little ahead of us in that game. We have been working on the development of remote supports, but I wanted to talk a little bit in the beginning about some of the things that we did, or some of the hurdles that we had to overcome to get where we are. So we started in 2018 with the Enabling Technology Startup Grant. And so at that time, our agency was really more familiar with some of the common technology that people use in their homes now, like the Alexa and the Amazon Dot and things like that. Those were quite popular in 2018. So that was some of the things that we were looking at. We had never really given any thought to the fact that people at that time could not have overnight supports. We did know that people were over supported in some levels, but it was just kind of the way it was, is that people received 24-hour support. So that's kind of where we started at. And then we identified tech champions, and we thought that we had done a fantastic job at identifying those tech champions. But what we found is that we had chosen people that had quite robust jobs already. So the two people that we had chosen were very committed to having people utilize technology. However, their other job duties were getting in the way of the technology piece of that. And so it was taking a backseat to some of the other things that they were working on. We started strong. We got all of our technology trainings that we needed to have done completed. We also did our organizational policy. So we started very strong with the structure, building that structure in the beginning. One of the things I look back now and think about in terms of identifying the people that we were supporting for enabling technology as a whole is we were doing the identification. And like I said, with the tech champions, we had chosen those people that had jobs that they were working on and duties they were focusing on, and it made things move a little slow. And we actually started out with someone that we're working on remote supports for. And that kind of fell through for her, and we had put a lot of time and effort into that, and we felt a little discouraged. We had moved slow, and she had some problems, some psychiatric issues that had occurred, and so that movement kind of discouraged all of us in that process of thinking that maybe it wasn't, we couldn't do it. But then we kind of re-looked at that and decided that we absolutely could do it. And so what we did is we learned from those lessons in the beginning, and we determined a position that would have a technology focus. And so we identified Miranda, who's going to talk in a minute, as a person that would, technology is not her only job, but it's definitely one of the things that takes a priority. So we have a position for this to continue to move forward. So we allowed people to self-identify what technology they wanted to use, and it seems very simple now looking back, like why would we have not had people self-identify? So we had an open house and had people come through, look at different technologies that were available, and then found people that were interested in technology that I would have never thought would be interested in technology. So we worked through that process and came up with some ways to be able to help people receive those supports that they desired. We did start working on creating a dedicated technology space that allows us to be able to show people more how the technology works in programs here. So I know Miranda will talk a little bit about what we're doing there. And the last thing again, a very simple thing was that we learned that we definitely need to communicate, and that's communicating through all programs, bringing that to our executive leadership and to our direct support professionals, and definitely communicating with families, communicating with the people that we're supporting, and letting them know how we can help to support them, letting them know that they can have technology, that they can have independence, and there is an opportunity for independent living for them. That's really important for people to realize too, is that these options are available.
Nick, we had a few questions that came in. Jordan, who unfortunately had to leave, had a question about how do you address HIPAA issues when implementing this kind of technology, or how did you look at that?
HIPAA issues. So the people that are providing remote supports are our paid employees. They're considered part of the support team for the people they're supporting remotely, the same way that they would be considered part of the team if they were a traditional staff person. So they're privy to all the same information, and we really essentially we don't handle HIPAA any differently than we would for a traditional staff person that was going to be working in somebody's home.
Okay. And the tech part of it, you just, as far as like the Ring video doorbell and the nucleus and all that, the way that the data is transmitted, I'm assuming is you guys vetted that out and that's all done in a...
Yeah, we have an enabling technology plan for our agency that addresses how we're going to secure people's privacy. And if you have a video Ring doorbell on the outside of somebody's home, of course, that's a privacy issue. So you have to make sure that you have solid passwords that are shared exclusively with people that need to have access to them. Actually, the tablets that our remote support specialists are using have their own password that nobody else in the agency is able to use. They're dedicated devices. So if you're not a remote support specialist or a member of the team the technology team, you don't have access to those devices.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
Then Miranda, I'm just let me know when you're ready. I'm kind of just burning time for you. So what about PRN meds? You had mentioned using automated med dispensers. Do you have anybody that has PRN meds? And if so, how do you manage that?
We do, and that kind of falls into the category that if somebody is not capable of self-administration in the way that they could get a Tylenol for themselves if they needed it, then that's going to fall into the category of things that an on-site staff person is going to have to respond to. That's probably maybe one of the more common things. We don't see a lot of like emergencies, but we do see like, I have a headache, I don't feel good, can somebody come give me Tylenol or something? So yeah.
Awesome. I do know of a device for the person that asked about that PRN. There's a device out there that can administer PRN medications, and I'll throw that in the chat so that everybody can take a look at that if they're interested. Thanks, Nick. Miranda, you're up. Andrea, you have a few questions in the chat. I will make sure that we get to those, but I'm going to turn it over to Miranda to continue.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Just kind of starting from where she left off, some of the technologies that we're already using at EDC is the Spencer, Voice It, Impers, the video doorbell, task reminder, and the Alexa devices, and of course cell phones and tablets. So our dispenser that we're using currently is the Spencer medication dispenser, and that's what you'll see here with Cindy on the right. The meds come preloaded. You just stick them down the device, and then at her scheduled bedtimes, you just kind of walk over, push the button, it'll dispense the meds. There's also the option for the Med Alert. That's kind of just a device you could order offline that someone would pre-fill the meds, and then at the scheduled time, it would just rotate and someone could get in there and get their meds out. The Voice It, this is something we're kind of testing right now. It's still in the beta testing phases. So what an individual would do is they would download the app onto a smart device, and they would preload phrases onto the device. So you could like type in a sentence like, I would like a cup of coffee. And then the person would repeat that phrase over and over and over again. And the device would start to pick up on the utterances in their speech. And then when they say that into the device, it will kind of translate for them to help their staff understand what they're saying and what they're asking for. Okay, one of the devices that we're starting to use for remote supports is the Impers device. This is Michael, and believe it or not, that's his happy face. He was very excited to finally get this. He had been waiting for probably about a year to get this. So he started out with staying just for now an hour at a time, and the staff would just call. We've actually set up cell phones for each house that has an MPERS device that the staff pass, because if a staff leaves or quits, or we don't want their phone numbers to be still onto the account, because it takes a little bit for that to be changed. So at the 30-minute mark, staff just call the device and it automatically answers, and they'll ask how Michael's doing, if everything's okay, does he need assistance with anything. If he's good to go, then he will stay for an hour. And we're still pretty new to that, so that's the phase that we're at right now. Oh, and back to the MPERS. Okay. Let's go back down here. Okay, are we good now?
There we go. Yep, we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Sorry that we're having such trouble. So the receiving the device location via the text message, if you just text a certain number to the device, it will actually send the location with Google Maps to wherever the person's located. So the video doorbell, of course, that's everybody's favorite. We actually set this up for Marie because she's actually deaf, but that creates a safe area for her so that she can look out and make sure that everything's safe before she goes outside. And then the task reminder, we actually have one that was using this for work, and it would just remind her of the task she needed to complete at her job, because she had a bad habit of wanting to stop and talk. She was a talker, loved to talk to everybody. So this would kind of provide prompts of did she complete what she was supposed to complete, and would prompt for certain times to take her breaks. And this is some additional tech that we have in our technology room, just to kind of help support the remote supports. So of course the Alexa devices and Echoes, the contact sensors could be put on a door. It could be put on a refrigerator to alert staff that the refrigerator door was left open for too long. Flood and freeze sensors, if there's water that got into the floor, it would send it to a cell phone or other device. And then, actually, do you want to start this one? Okay. All of that led up to us creating a remote support plan. So we identified sites where people supported could actually utilize remote supports. Currently, we're working on overnight supports, but that's not going to be the only support that we want to offer, because like we said, the MPERS is kind of where we're starting right now. So that's kind of during the day, just to allow some time to themselves. Multiple employees will be trained. So I guess it's kind of like how you have yours set up a little bit, Nick, where we have a home that has 2 staff that necessarily doesn't have to have 2 staff there. And that staff would be the backup. And then if they're not able to leave, they would have contacts with maybe the home manager or something to send out somebody to help support. And that has created a new position, the remote support coach. We actually don't have anyone currently in this position because like we said, we're kind of in the early phases of remote supports, but this is our plan that we've come up with. It'd be an internal promotional position. They would get additional trainings, increase the abilities and independence of the people we support, because that's the complete goal of all of this is independence. They would observe the alerts. So like we had talked about with the MPERS, they would have access to like a tablet or a cell phone to be able to respond to those. And I think that's our presentation.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We did have a question that just came in the chat. Have either of you come across anything that's not necessarily remote support related, but maybe it is, anything that is easy to install for anti-scald, controlling water temperature, monitoring that remotely?
I don't know of anything sophisticated to monitor that remotely, but I do know there's devices that can be built into the actual faucet that you can adjust how far they can turn and things. Kind of a simple tech solution, but that type of thing exists.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I think it's pretty interesting that both of these agencies have taken the approach of kind of the DIY approach, right? Where they didn't go out to your traditional remote support vendor and subcontract it out for them to do this. that, you know, there's a bigger learning curve, I think, when you're trying to do your own remote supports and things that you just have to think through, and backup plans and some of the things that both Miranda and Nick talked about. The question, I guess, what I'm getting at is what you're doing is unique, and I think will honestly be the wave of the future for remote supports. There's always going to be a place for these, you know, remote support vendors like your Night Owls and Syngistics and Rest Assured and those folks, because not every agency is going to want to go the DIY route. But I think that what you guys have done is kind of made remote supports local remote supports as opposed to distant remote supports. And I think that will be the future. So how do you guys, I'm going to get back to some questions from the audience. Andrea had a question. So when you're, you know, in an ISP meeting or, you know, talking with an individual, how do you help individuals self-identify that they would be appropriate for this type of support?
We utilize person-centered facilitation planning tools. That has been extremely useful, that process and all the tools that are in that toolkit, and just exploring whether or not this is something somebody wants. Sometimes living on your own is a foreign concept to folks, and they maybe don't even truly understand it because they've never experienced it. So you have to really start basic, figure out what kind of life they see for themselves, and then work outward from there.
Miranda, same thing, or?
Yeah, I think that's the same for us. We kind of do the person-centered approach, of course, and like we had mentioned, our technology room that we have set up here at EVC, we've kind of started setting it up like an apartment so that people could see what technologies can be used for a specific purpose. And then when they kind of see that, they're like, oh, well, I would love to be able to do something like that for myself. And that kind of opens the doors and opens the conversations.
Cool. How many, I guess a couple of questions here related to your remote support employees, the people that are actually doing the remote supports through the technology, supporting individuals. Is there any specific training that you have to give them is one of the questions.
Training beyond, I guess you're asking training beyond what somebody who would train to support somebody traditionally.
ESP type training, yeah.
Yeah, so everybody is trained on an enabling technology response plan, which is a lot like an ISP, except for it's specifically focused on how you're going to support somebody using technology. It includes everything from the types of technology to the parameters of the alerts that might be generated to the response that's warranted from a given alert. They're all trained on that. They are trained on the use of the devices. This is new to us. We've only really just started it. We kind of have our inaugural team, but we did about a half a day orientation where we went through all the troubleshooting methods that they would run into and what every piece of technology does, and then a lot of individual specific things as well. So
yeah, and then kind of same for us. We do the DIDD technology trainings, and then we of course have the backup response plan saved into the computer. So that's one of the trainings that they'll go through before they even look at the device, and then we'll train the staff on the specific devices and go from there.
Yeah, I think that is the most critical piece in remote supports, is that the person on the end doing the remote supports knows the needs of the people that they're serving. If you don't have that in the equation, remote supports don't work.
Right.
Because it truly is just a person to a person service, right? You're just putting tech in the middle to facilitate it. So
exactly.
How many, in your experience right now, how many homes or individuals can one remote support staff person support?
So right now we have 2 remote support specialists, and they are supporting 7 people remotely, in addition to providing direct support to up to 3 folks in a home. Some of that's done for redundancy. One person could probably support 7 or more people depending on their needs, as long as there were backups in the event that, you know, several people needed something at once. But we do that for redundancy because there's not a lot of people in our agency that have the skill set. You can't just call another staff to fill in if one of them's on vacation or something. So by having 2, you have an extra person that could fulfill the duty by themselves if they needed to. I don't really know the answer to ratio. I guess it would kind of depend on the needs of the individuals.
Yeah, it really does. I think that's the needs of the individuals, the skill of the remote caregiver.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Miranda, did you have something to add there? I don't want to. We had another question, but.
Oh no, definitely. I agree. It's based on the needs of the individual and support specialists.
How do you guys do documentation is another question. Service documentation. If you don't have, kind of like a PC where they're sitting there, are you just doing it in whatever EHR your agency already uses, or?
Yes, we've instructed our remote support specialists to use our electronic record system to document any time that they provide support to somebody. There will be entire nights where they don't provide support to anybody in particular, or to a particular person at all, so they won't do any documentation. But if they provide support, they document the support.
And that's same for us, document the support and also document progress, how they're doing with using the device, and if they're being successful or if there's any issues, make sure to document that as well.
And another element of that is oftentimes the technology itself, it provides its own documentation in the way of reports that can be pulled. That will oftentimes serve to prove that you're providing a service during the night when somebody's not necessarily in the home.
Good point. Yeah, the devices kind of have a different form of documentation. It's not written entries, but it's still
exactly
validating that certain things have and haven't occurred. That's cool.
Yeah.
So thank you both. I know we're a little over time, but there's one question that just jumped in here that's I really like it. Has anybody experienced or tried virtual day services?
We've played a little bit around with having Zoom meetings just to try to, everybody's kind of lacking in socialization right now. So just to try to make people feel like they're less alone and isolated. I don't know that that you would call that day services, but we're trying to get creative with Zoom as much as we can be, like the rest of the world, I suppose. How about you, Miranda?
Yeah, same for us. I mean, we use Zoom. We know Zoom very, very well. And, we're trying to introduce that to our individuals also and get them involved so that it's not just using the staff cell phone. Let them have their own device to interact with people.
Right. Yeah.
We have.
And we've also used Zoom for our employment services also to kind of show like some virtual, maybe show a video of how a job task is done if this is something you're interested in. So
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, we have several people that use technology on the job site in the way of reminders, like Miranda mentioned, and scheduling apps and things, and then some mobile personal emergency response systems. I didn't delve into that because that's kind of its own whole separate topic, but that's, I think, another area that has a lot of potential for us and for services in general.
If anybody's interested, we actually did a tech huddle with a company called Imagine out of Boulder, Colorado, that has done some virtual reality employment training. And then we had another company on that allows for augmented reality, kind of hand-over-hand assistance. So go check out past tech huddles. There's some things in there that might inspire some ideas around remote employment supports, remote job coaching, remote day services. So we are way over time, which is totally fine, completely fine. This was great. Thank you guys very much for doing this. We had a comment in there. Is it possible to get a copy of the PowerPoints used here? Yes. If you guys just drop me an email, I'll be happy to work with our presenters to get that out. I'll throw my email address in the chat right now, but it's dustin@disabilitycocoon.com. And if you're interested in some of those other past tech huddles, I can get you copies of those things too. Nick, Miranda, thank you very much. Great job. Again, DIDD, Harold Sloves, thanks for pulling these two together and introducing me to them. Great presentation today. Hopefully you've inspired some other folks to jump on the remote supports.